Hello. All right. I'm nowhere near as far along as I thought I'd be for this live AMA. Hi, Ingrid. Welcome. But what I am doing, you guys are in on the very beginning of this new piece. So I have got a sheet. Hey, Maria. I have got a sheet of 20, is it 20? It's 22 by 30 inches. So 22 across and 30 inches long, hot press, 300-pound watercolor paper. So it's a little bit more than double thick average watercolor paper. And I use the extra thick paper when I'm doing very large work and even sometimes smaller work too, because I don't like to stretch watercolor paper. I mean, I never work wet enough that I really have to, but sometimes, especially on bigger pieces where I'm trying to cover more area, um, my washes might be a little wetter. And so to get around the whole buckling thing and having to wet your paper first. Yeah, happy Sunday, Maria. Happy Sunday, everybody. Um, I use the extra thick paper. Oh, and you know what I just realized? Oh no, I have watermarks on both sides. Oh, okay, that's fine. Never mind. Monkey mind here. So I have this really big piece taped up. Let me get to a place where I can see what you're seeing. Okay, so I have created a small drawing. I did this weeks ago as I was working out ideas in my composition. So kind of my process when I'm painting is I spend however long I need to spend. Hey Ethel, welcome. I spend however long as I need to spend working out ideas in my sketchbook. So this is actually based on an owl that I met during a conservation event given by the Chewonki Foundation about 7 years ago. So I got to meet this barred owl, and I took lots of pictures of this barred owl. Oh, I'll get back to your question in just a minute. I so I met this barred owl and I took lots of pictures, and from those pictures I made lots of sketches. And then finally this year I had an idea of what I wanted to do. So I took my sketches and my reference photos, and I came up with this concept where I am going to, it's actually for an exhibition in September. And the piece is titled The Gaze, and the eyes will have a reflection off of the view off of Cadillac Mountain at sunrise. And then I have a really tight portrait of this barred owl. And then so I worked out, I made lots of sketches, lots of thumbnails, discarded a lot of stuff, circled back to things, blah blah blah. And finally I got a sketch that I liked, and then I turned it into a tonal drawing. So you see here I have my value strip, which I talked about in the last Tuesday. I don't have a name for that series. Let's call it Tuesday Tips. No, that doesn't sound right. But the drawing series that I'm doing on Tuesdays, I drop a post on Notes with something to help you with drawing. And so here's my little value scale. I was working on toned paper, so the paper is actually if we're going to call this light, this is the next light, mid-tone. These three are the mid-tones, but that's right center of mid-tone, dark mid-tone, and then dark. So this is light mid-tone, and that's the color of the paper. So I created this tonal drawing. Now I have to take that tonal drawing and put it on my watercolor paper. And so the way I do this, and this, you guys are getting in on the very, very beginning. If I have time to put down initial washes, I will do it. But if not, you'll get to see how I transfer a drawing. I don't use any kind of projection. There are people who do projection. You get apps on your phone that do that, or there are some really high powered projectors that oil painters will use if they're doing I've seen portrait painters do it because they're taking a reference and they are blowing up huge, like, several feet by several feet. And a projector is actually a way to get accurate proportions. Um, Other people will create a scale drawing and then either back it with some graphite paper or rub graphite powder on it, tape it to their final paper, and then draw over it to transfer the drawing. I do none of that. Um, and part of it is every time I redraw what I'm doing, I learn a little bit more. So, and I gain muscle memory because I've now drawn this particular owl. If you count a previous painting that I did with this owl, I have drawn this owl a good 75 times. Um, so every time I get more used to its proportions and it just gets a little faster and I can play with it, making it bigger and smaller. Um, the other reason that I don't use any mechanical means to transfer is because, or technological means. I do use mechanical means, and I'll show you the tools I use in a minute. Um, but the other reason is I can play with the design a little bit. So you can't see my whole board because this is so big. But I'm able to kind of decide where I really want to go tight into the portrait for this because the focal point are the little landscapes and his eyes. Um, but I'm able to play with the shapes a little bit. So while I am after realism, I am not a photorealist, meaning I'm not trying to get something that looks like a photograph. I want it to look like a painting, but I do paint tight and I do paint very realistic, and I'm crazy about putting in feather detail and things like that. But it does still allow me to play with some of these shapes. He's got a nice curve on his head, and his face is tilted a little bit. And I like that. It just makes it a little bit interesting for me. So because I am essentially redrawing it, I get to play with that a little bit. So that's why I don't do that. Let me answer some questions. So Maria's asking, Maria is asking if there is a right side of the paper or a wrong side of the paper. Not the paper I'm using. I use Arches watercolor paper and mine is hot press. I like working on hot press. um, I do sometimes work on cold press for funsies, just like when I'm playing around for myself, but my professional work is always on hot press for a couple reasons. The hot press still has a slight texture, but not a lot. And I'm able to get nice details. I just like the way it plays with the layers of my watercolor. Um, like I said, I don't work very wet, so I will tell you cold press or rough textured water paper is really great if you work very wet or wet on wet or do a lot of that where you want your watercolor to bloom and move because of the texture, it grabs the pigment particles and just has really cool effects. I don't work that way. So for me, the hot press works. So Arches, I can't speak for other paper. I'm trying to remember. It's been such a long time. Decades ago, I used Fabriano Artistico, which I didn't like very much. A lot of people love it. I found the surface too mushy. So, so yeah, I can't really speak to other brands, but I can tell you that Arches has no wrong side or right side, because Arches is internally sized, meaning when they make the paper pulp, you know, when it's a goop, before they put it in the mold, they size it. They put something in it that regulates the water and pigment absorption. And then after they do that, they externally size it as well, front and back. So you can use any side that you want. Most of the time, it really doesn't matter, but I'm using a full sheet of paper, meaning it hasn't been cut down. So I have some watermarks in it. Let's see, of course you can't see them, but in the corners on this side, I have two of the watermarks. And if I pull the tape off, I've got what's called the deckled edge. It's the edge of the paper fibers from the edge of the mold, because this one hasn't been cut down. So I like to make sure uh, that at least the watermark is not backwards, just because I think that could be a little too distracting for people who are viewing the painting. We'll see. Sometimes you don't even notice it. I'm doing such a dark background that you probably won't even notice the watermark when I'm done, but if I'm using a light background, it could kind of come out. So yeah, so there is no wrong right side. That was a long way of saying that no, there isn't a right side. Both sides can be used. Hey, Wendy. All right, so I thought I'd just go ahead and show you some of the tools I use to transfer my drawing. So you'll notice on my drawing that I have created quadrants. So this is the center of my drawing, vertically and horizontally. Oh, you're welcome, Maria. Glad I could be helpful. Um, so I do that. I don't grid it any more than that. There are people who will like put a very even grid, and that is a perfectly valid way of transferring things, because then you can just take a square and you just replicate the square, and it works. It transfers beautifully. It goes relatively quickly, not quick, but relatively quickly compared to my method. And it's perfectly valid way. I don't do that because I want to be free if I want to alter something, because the design, it as I'm drawing it again for the final time, if I want to change something, I'm free to do that without having to then shift everything, every piece of the grid. So I just create 4 quadrants, and that way I know the exact center of my drawing, and that becomes a landmark. So it's a little different than when you see me draw, like, say, a bird or anything from a reference where I'm looking at the unit of measurement and then I'm going through the bird and I'm constructing the grid, like we talked about during Wonderfilled Wednesday. I'm constructing a grid very specific to this bird. When I'm transferring, I'm now literally trying to transfer this to that in it. I'm not thinking about how I'm going to build this bird on the page. I've already built it. I just need to get it onto my watercolor paper. So just going to move that. Um, the paper goes way up. Unfortunately, my camera angle, I was playing with it and I couldn't get the board in without moving it so far away that you couldn't see it. So I will figure this out as we're going in the future, because I'll pop in here and show you the stages as I work on this. I have to get this done by when do I have to have this done? This one needs to be done by the middle to end of August, probably the middle of August, because I need to get it framed. I actually frame it myself, but it takes me a while to get the frame and the glass and all that. So, um, because it'll be in a show in the middle of September. So I'll pop in here and you'll get to see it in various stages. So here are the tools that I use. Once I get my mark my drawing with a vertical and a horizontal to divide it into quadrants, I do the same thing with the big sheet of paper. I have I don't draw the lines down the center, but I do make marks so that I know where the center, and I have it down below on the bottom and up on the top. So I do know where the quadrants are, and then this is my marker for that corresponds with this here. And then because I have this one point, I can start to build the bird out from that. So this is very similar to when I teach how to draw a bird or how to draw wildlife or how to draw anything. Even though I have the four quadrants, I still had to decide how high wanted to go, how low I wanted to go, and how far from the sides I wanted this to be. And I had to create the overall box or envelope that said the sides cannot go beyond here because I will be matting this in the frame and I don't want it to squeeze in too far. I need to have a little bit of play here. But this is also a composition where I'm really tight into the face of the owl. So I knew that it couldn't go beyond that. That was the most important, that it doesn't go beyond this area, the bird. So based on that, I had to take, where's my little, based on that, I had to go and measure. Remember, I'm pressing up against that imaginary pane of glass and trying to get my measurement. And then, let's see, you can't see the whole thing. And then deciding how from here to here, how many of these I can fit into that. And that way I was able to place the bird on the paper where I wanted it to be. And then everything else, once I have that big shape, it's then carving away at the box, which I have already done up at the, let's see, I can carved away up at the box. And now I'm placing the eyes. So I have eyes here and eyes here. So the way I wanted to show you quickly how I did that. Um, so I use a skewer, of course, my pencil, my kneaded eraser, not to make corrections, but to remove the lines I no longer need. Lines are markers, they're landmarks for us, and you cannot put a line in a wrong place. When you're drawing, that's the thing that nobody really ever tells you. It took me a long time to realize that, but you cannot place a mark in a wrong place because every mark you place is a reference point to either shift it up or down, left or right, until you get it to match your reference. That's all it is. So uh, if you're ever like trepidatious about a blank sketchbook or a blank sheet of paper, don't be. Just put down a mark. Make your best guess. It doesn't matter um, if it's right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. It's a reference point, and then from there you can look at your mark and say, does that need to be down or up, or do I need to move it this way or that way, or maybe the angle of it is wrong, or not wrong, but maybe I need to adjust the angle, that kind of thing. Um, so I'm using these things, and then something that I don't think you guys have seen me use before, and of course now that I need it, it's disappeared. Come on. Hold on. Oh yeah, it fell on the floor. That's why. Oops. So I use a plumb line. And if you take a class with me, this is going to be on the required list of supplies. I have everybody make a plumb line and I show you how to do it. Just get the washers at a hardware store. You can get buttonhole thread anywhere that sells thread. You're just looking for buttonhole twist because it's really, really strong. black is the best. Red works, but black is the best. And you construct a plumb line. And I use this a lot to help me figure out angles. I can kind of, since I don't create an individual grid, I can use that to match up areas on my bird. So because it's got a weight, it's always going to be true. And so I can look, match it up to the inner corner of the eye, and see where the edge of the beak is compared to the inner corner of the eye. It just so happens the edge of the beak lines up right with the inner corner of the eye. So I can use that. If this is the inner corner of my eye, right here, which it is, and I'll tell you, oops, which it is, and I'll tell you how I got to that in a minute, then I know that there's a wide area of his beak right here that just right somewhere along this vertical is the widest part of one side of his beak, right there, more or less. And how I was able to get to this is because I was able to put in a horizontal right here, because I used this to kind of plot out from the top of his head to that center point, then down and down. That beak is about 2/3 from the center point of his head. From here to here, it's roughly, that whole line can be thirds. So so that's how I was able, get rid of that. That's how I was able to figure out where the edge of his beak is, where the bottom is. And then, well, that's how I was able to figure out where the bottom of his beak was. How I figured out where this point and this edge and that angle is, once I was able to put in the eyes, and I did that by using the center line and figuring out how far from here and here I needed to be with the outer eyes. And it turned out it was almost equal, just a little bit. This one's a little bit out. And then I was able to plot where the outer eyes are, also based on some of the angle breaks at the top of his head. And then I was able to use this, the inner part of his eye, to plot out exactly where this beak is, where that little point of his beak. So this is that outer edge on the our right side of the composition. And then from there, I was able to place the inner corner of this eye and double check the outer corner of that eye. So once you start to become certain where things are, you can plot out the rest of it, because you have more reference points, more information. And I find using a plumb line really, really, really helpful. Um, so yeah, so I use all three of these things to check angles and do my measurements, uh, decide, what is a complete vertical line, all of that fun stuff. Um, and I don't just use this for transferring a drawing. I actually will use my plumb line in studio situations all the time. I tend not to take it out in the field with me because I'm drawing quicker out in the field. It's more sketchy, but when I'm doing final drawings and things like this, I'm using my plumb line all the time. Does anybody have any questions so far? Questions about what I'm doing? Questions about the courses? If you don't know, I am offering So last winter, I had an intro to drawing birds, an intro to painting birds, and an advanced techniques in painting birds, where we spent 12 weeks working on a really big painting. And everybody had their own little projects. But for the intro, I literally walked you through the steps for each of those things, the intro courses. So next fall, I am offering intro to drawing realistic birds again, and I've added a new course, intro to drawing realistic wildlife for those who want to draw more than just birds. And I'm expanding the intro to painting birds workshop because it was 4 weeks. It really should have been 6 weeks. So I added 2 more weeks. It's more comprehensive. Um, if you already took that course with me last winter, you will have access to it. So no worries. You'll get to relive the trauma. No, I'm just kidding. It's a lot of fun. And then I've added a intro to drawing in pen and ink, drawing nature in pen and ink. So we do animals, minerals, vegetables. We're doing the whole gamut of what you see out in nature: animals, plants, rock formations, everything. And I'm bringing back advanced techniques. And yeah, so if you have any questions about those, pop those in the chat. If you have any questions about what I'm doing here, pop that in the chat. Okay, so I'm actually going to figure out how tall his eyes are right now. So here, I'll show you what I'm doing, because sometimes I don't get to show you this during Wonderfield Wednesday. So I've talked about when you are drawing from reference, imagine there's a pane of glass right in front of your reference, whether you are drawing live, something you're seeing out in the world, or whether you are drawing, right? Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, my screen went blank on my phone. Um, whatever you're drawing, whether you're drawing from a drawing that you've already made, or whether you are drawing from something live or photograph. So imagine a pane of glass and you are pressing whatever you're using to measure. That could be a skewer. Often I use my pencil because it's already in my hand. It could be your plumb line. You press up against the imaginary pane of glass, and then you are using your thumb to kind of mark things off. So if that's his eyeball, oh wait, because the camera's at a different height, so I'll do it so you guys can see what I'm doing. So there's his eyeball. So now I have to compare it to the vertical width. And I'd say 2/3 to 3/4. Hold on. So the camera's up here and I'm down here. So let me just, yeah, it's more like 3/4. So here I am. And because eyes can vary, I'm sticking with the eye that I just measured. So if this is going to be the top, and I don't know if it is, then 3/4 is going to be around right here. So I'm going to double check it. And then double check it this way, or this way. Yeah, and I'm happy with that. Do I know that that's where the top and bottom of his eye is? Absolutely not. But I know that whatever it is, it's going to be this width or length, however you want to call that. Now let's do the other one. So I'll do it for you guys first. Oops. Hmm. This one looks a little smaller. Yeah, it's about 3/4 though. So again, if that's what I'm considering the top, a 3/4 maybe right there. Let's see. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, like I said, I do not know if that is really the top and the bottom, but that width is right. It might shift around and it will shift in relationship to the other eye. So now we're going to figure out where is this exactly. So let's see, the best way I think is I can use this midpoint right here to figure out where it is. So let's do it with our little plumb line. So I'm going from where the eye hits that midline. We're looking at that kind of an angle. So let me do it for you guys. So we're looking at that kind of an angle. So then I bring this angle over here. It's going to be somewhere, because remember, this is the midline. So that's that angle. So now I'm going to double check. Yeah, that's where it is. Okay, this has to come down. And then we're going to see how far it has to come down and move that one down too. So here's what I mean about your mark is just a reference point. You can't put a wrong mark down. You can only put a mark that you can then shift. So now I don't need these lines anymore. So I'm going to take them out. And now I'm pretty comfortable that I have the top and the bottom of his eye where it's supposed to be. I can double check that. And this works again for transferring your drawing to your final paper, but it's also working for just general drawing. So I'm looking at the top of this eye right here, and I'm just seeing where it kind of is in relation to this angle break right here. And then I'm looking at how I transferred it in relation to the angle break that's sitting right here. And I'm comfortable with that for now. I might be able to move that around. I will also measure from the top of the eye to the top of the head and then use my unit of measurement, which is still from the bottom of the beak to the top point of his head where the crown kind of meets like this, and see how that ratio is. Okay, let me catch up on questions. Oh, hey, Roger, welcome. Um, so Maria says the more she learns about birds, the more she realizes there's so much more to learn. It is a never-ending quest. Isn't that exciting? It's what I love about birds and what I love about drawing them. And there are no two alike. Even within species, there's so much to learn. Okay, so I'm pretty comfortable where that is. So why don't we just see where it is in relation to the top of the head? So if I go back here, let's do the skewer this time. Okay, so if I'm taking this as my unit of measurement, and let me do it for you guys first. And I'm going from the top of his eyeball, not his eye socket, his eyeball, It's roughly about a half. Yeah, I'd say that's about a half. Maybe a little less than a half. Okay. Now, this is where I do need my plumb line because my skewer just isn't going to be large enough. So I take this, looking kind of here. So I'm going up this angle, and that's about right. So I'm comfortable that I've got this eye placed. Now I can go ahead and put the second eye in based on this one. And the best way to do that is, oops, here we go, is to figure out the bottom angle. Now, I've mentioned this with faces before, faces of any creature, animals, humans, any creature. You've got kind of like a center line. This is not the center line of his face. This is the center line of his face. So you have this center line of his face. And stacked up on that center line are a bunch of horizontals. The top of his head, horizontal, has to match the top of his eyes, horizontal, which match the bottom of his eye, horizontals, which match the bottom of his beak, horizontal, and the bottom of his his throat feathers. And on humans, it's the same way. You're going top of the head, brow bone, eye, under the nose, under the lip, chin. If you've got a fox, you're dealing with a muzzle, but it's still top of the head. If the being is facing you, top of the head, um, top of the eyes, bottom of the eyes, then you're dealing with the top of the muzzle or nose, bottom of the muzzle, um, or yeah, bottom of the muzzle, which is right under the mouth, and that kind of thing. And they have to line up because if they start doing this, it looks quirky and fun, but it won't look realistic. It's not that that's wrong, it's just it doesn't look realistic. But if your effect is to have something look quirky and expressive, and there's a reason why you're altering it like that, because they do it in characters all the time for animation, well, there's a reason for that, and we have an emotional response to that. So let me go ahead and put in the bottom. So that's going to be right about, oops, make sure I pick up the right pencil. So I work in a 4H when I am putting, those are 4Bs, where's my 4H? Well, I'll just use my 2H for now. The 4H is probably on the floor. Um, oh no, I see it. Okay, so I use a 4H just because it's real light, but I think you guys can still see it. So I have to keep this. That means it's there. And then I just want to double check. Got this going right. Yep. Okay. And that means this is going to change. Well, it won't because we've got that pretty dialed in, but can do that. That's going to be the top of that eye. And I like to double check this because if you, like I said, if you get this wrong, it doesn't look realistic, and I'm not doing animated quirky stuff right now. Oh, see, I thought it was too big. And here's the other thing, trust your judgment. If it looks too, if something about anything that you're doing, if it looks too big, too small, just remeasure it, approach it from maybe a different point that you're sure about, and just double check. That's all. Okay, let's go ahead and put some of the eye angle in. We can start carving away at this box here. And so I'm just carving away at the box. Taking off these corners. And I may adjust this later as long as I keep this and 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 this point exactly where it needs to be. I can adjust the shape of the eye. I also have to deal with an eye socket up in here, but I'm not going to put that in yet. Let's see. Oh, hi, Deborah. Hey, Rhonda. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. One of the things I'm seeing right here, the bottom of the eyes, right here, right along here is going to be like the top of that nose. Remember how this is forming that? Let's go ahead and put the angle of this in. I may have to adjust that, but it's kind of giving me an idea. There's this general angle. Got, this is where that break happens. I can refine this a little bit. There's a tiny little break there. That comes up like that. So I've got an angle break there, one there, one there. Let's do this one too. Have an angle break there. There would be one right there. I work in straight lines as much as possible at this point. Okay. Okay. And I'm noticing this is the half point. This is my halfway line, And I notice that right here, there's an angle break where the nostril, where the feathers, the eye feathers are. So put that in. And I like my lines to be sweeping because I'm not, 100%. I haven't put anything in yet. And this angle break is going to correspond to one right there. And remember this line, we knew where that was. So now I can get rid of this and that and just a little bit of that. And got a little bit of the shape of that beak. There's a lot of shape in here that I can begin to break up. But now that I've got that in, why don't I go ahead and put that center line in? And if I've done this correctly, let's just see up here, that this center line right in here, see how it hits this peak? If I have this placed correctly after everything I did relatively to get it to that place, then the center line should match up. And it does. So I'm just going to put this in as a straight line. It's got a lot of information in here, but right now I'm just kind of getting where everything is. Now, that's another thing I should point out. This is just the base drawing, and then I'm going to paint on it. It's not going to be as detailed as this is. This and all my references, I will have my references up on screen in kind of like a collage. And then I'm going to have this drawing and this value study so that I'm reminded this is the darkest area, and then I've got some midtones and my lights are in here. I will have these up along the edge, but this drawing will not be as detailed as this one. I'm going to use this to know where to put feathers and I'm going to paint those details in, but I still need to get it to look more than this. So let's continue, shall we? But I have the center line of his face now, and I know that I will curve this a little bit and put the feather texture in later. All right, so now that we kind of have this angle and we have this angle, and I just want to double check because this is where you start looking for repeating patterns. So a lot of what I'm showing you right now is also what I'm thinking about when I'm transferring my final drawing onto my final watercolor paper. But it's also what I think about when I'm blocking in a drawing from either life or from a reference photo, is once I've got like the major features in, I start to look for patterns. We're hardwired as humans to look for patterns, and there are patterns here. I'm gonna, oops, let's see. I have you on a tripod that doesn't really do a lot of stuff, so maybe I move this up a little. Oops, this one. And then I will move it down later. Okay, so there's some repeating patterns here. This eye, this angle here repeats here. This angle here repeats right there. So I can use that to my advantage and double check. Is this angle matching this one? Does this angle match that one? So I can look for repetition like that. So if I'm looking, and then I'm also looking for things that align. So he's got the cavity where his beak comes out of. His jaw is up in here. So the way I did this, I did heavy chiaroscuro, which is just like a really, it's a fancy Italian word. That is just referring to the contrast of light and dark. And I want this to be really dark. When I paint it, there will be subtle detail in there because his beak kind of wraps here. And what we've got is if he had, you know, his bird jaw is kind of back in here. So, so I can kind of think of those repetitions as well. So how does that, where his top beak and his bottom beak that join, how does that compare with what I've got going on in here? It's not really a one to one like angle, but I start to look for things like that. I can look for things like this here. There's this angle is going to match that angle. This angle will match this bottom part here. So these all become references for me to use later, if that makes sense. Okay, back to our little friend here. And I got to move this down so I am, it's at eye level for me. Anybody have any questions so far about anything? It's an AMA after all. You guys are very quiet. Okay. I do want to put this part in though, the mouth part. So let me see. So I've got that sweeping down like this. Got this sweeping down like that. And then I can look at that bottom of the beak and see that the bottom of the beginning of the auriculars, it's going to kind of happen on this angle. And here it's going to be here on this angle. Because remember, we have to match up the angles. Otherwise, his face is going to look weird. And he is, let's see, I don't have any extra paper here. Oh, yes, I do. Remember, he's round. So he's a, excuse my circles, which never turn out right. So he's a ball. His head is a ball. And if this is that little peak right here of his head, his face comes around. That's that midline, that center line. It wraps this way. And then everything sits like this. And remember, it's a ball this way. So it's really kind of an ellipse here, 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 if that makes sense. But that gets refined later when I paint. For now, I try to use as many straight lines as possible. Then I kind of round things out and then I start painting. Oh, Maria says she didn't notice his nostrils in his beak before. Oh, they are hit. The nostrils on bird beaks are hidden, but they're there. Sometimes you think it's just like a line, but that's really where he's breathing. It's wild when you see the where the ear holes are. He's got ears right here. And sometimes you'll see, like if you watch, like I do, a lot of the live cams, you'll see birds scratch their head right here. And then the feathers move aside. You see their little ear hole. It's kind of cute. Birds are so cute. Okay, I'm gonna go for about 10 minutes more and then, we call it a day. But just kind of looking where we are here. Okay, so then I can start from there. And now I kind of start to work side to side. So I need to raise that up a little. This needs to come up. And I can use this to plot the angle break where it changes direction. Those feather groups, that feather group changes direction right here. I can use this to know that there's a meeting of these two feather groups, this one and this one. Raise that up a little. This one comes up here. I can use this to tell me if there's an angle break right there. Kind of this feather group flattens out this way. So I've got a shape of feathers that come around like that. And because now I know where this is, I know that right here, this changes direction slightly. And I can use the top of the eye to know that there's an angle break in the feather pattern right here. For this now, it's going to go off on this side. And it's going to come in this way on this side. And then right here, slight angle break. Here. So I'm now out of camera. You can't see what I'm doing. But I roughly now have these feathers around his eye, kind of blocked in. And then I can see this coming up. This kind of mirrors this. Comes back around. Even though I have not refined that edge, I'm not going to worry about it. And then comes back to that center line, that horizontal center where I have that. Actually, might as well just bring that all the way down. I've got this coming here. Remember, that's where that edge is. Coming up. Slight break here. And I roughly have these kind of meeting each other. And he's starting to come in. Just double checking I still have that angle correct. Nothing shifted. this coming here. Right under the tip here. I can see that it stems from here, so I need to move that line over. Actually, this comes in from this side. And then meets up right here. And then now, because I have this, I can figure out where the other one is, just based on the angle. So I have it in the right spot. It's going to come down like that. And match up with that right there. So I have a basic block-in right here of my owl. Oops. And now it's just refining the edges, putting the curves in. Like I need to trim away right here up at the top, right in this area. I need to carve away at that box a little bit more, but I have all of the important parts. Um, so Ethel's asked me what size is my paper. It's a 30-inch by 22-inch sheet of paper. It's an Arches hot press, 300 pound. So it's the full sheet. They haven't cut it down. Oh, oh, Maria, sorry about that. I get that. My internet can be rather spotty too, so that works out. So at this point, yes, now I would spend a little bit of time, maybe another hour, just refining some edges, pulling some things in. I need to address the eye socket that's here, but now that I know where my eye is, it's not that hard to figure out where my eye socket is. And then, like I said, it's not going to be the final drawing on the watercolor paper will be nothing near this. Um, but as I paint, I will refer to this all the time because it is giving me a map for my halftones and my darkest and lightest areas of my painting. So it's a little bit of a roadmap. And then I will also have reference photos from the photo shoot that I did with this owl. I have him from many different angles, looking at me many different ways, and close-ups of his feathers, so I can put that detail in with paint. So this is kind of a little bit of just my process when I'm creating studio paintings. It's also a bit of what I'll show you in the intro courses as well as the advanced course. So the advanced techniques for painting realistic birds, it's a 12-week mentorship where I'm working on one of my studio paintings. It won't be this one. I have another studio painting that I'll be doing for that. And we go through the beginning phase of ideation, figuring out composition, figuring out a concept, all the way through to painting. And that's 12 weeks. And then the intro to drawing class, a lot of what I just showed you with the block-in, we apply to different subjects, birds and wildlife, depending on which one you're in. And then we develop a drawing that actually is even more refined than this one. This I would not consider a final drawing yet, but it's getting there. It's just I didn't need to have a fully fleshed out, finished drawing to be able to transfer it to my watercolor board. Um, but this is the beginning of that, and the intro to pen and ink, I'm really excited about sharing that with you. um, I illustrate a lot with pen and ink. Ouch. And that's an intro to drawing class too. So we go through, it's a 6-week course, and we go through learning how to draw from observation, and then creating a drawing that is finished enough to ink over. We won't be doing this bird, but this gives you an idea of, and we use dip pen and ink. And so I take you through the whole process of how to draw a bird, and then how to ink over it. So that's a 6-week course. And yeah, an intro to painting. If you have been around Cricklewood for a while, you've gotten the basics. And we work on those basics and we expand on those. So it's more studio painting rather than field painting. There's no using ink. We block in like we do here. And then I show you how to control watercolor, how to make it behave, how to make it do what you want, and how to avoid mud and any surprises that'll derail what you're doing. So we go through the Munsell Five and the Munsell Five primaries, and toning with earth colors, but in mixing, we talk about mixing, and we talk about how to control the water on your paper, what's absorbed by your paper, the water in your mixes, the ratio of water to pigment, and how wet your paper and how wet your brush and how juicy your mixtures are will affect what happens on the page. So yeah. Um, oh, Ethel, are you in the wildlife class? Oh, exciting. Okay, well, welcome, welcome. Um, you'll be getting another email with the full list of supplies that you'll need for that. And oh, I'm excited that you're in that one. Yay! Well, we're getting into the last week of early bird registration. So all the courses are $50 off, with the exception of the advanced techniques. That's $100 off. So you'll see if you go on the website, if you go on the Cricklewood website, you'll see a link up at the top bar for workshops or courses, and it'll take you to the course page. When I send this replay out, I will put a link to the course page, and I will also put this out on notes and put a link to the course page too, so that you can go look and explore and see if any of these are going to help you in your journey, will help you with your practice. So there might be something there that will be helpful to you. If not, just stick with me in Cricklewood, and we'll have fun and do the Wonderfield Wednesdays and a lot of field sketching. We're still in the midst of camp, but yeah, if you really want a deep dive and a supportive environment to learn all these techniques, then the workshops are a great opportunity. But yeah, does anybody have any questions about the workshops? Does anybody have any questions about what I just did of transferring my drawing onto my watercolor paper? Um, I'll pop on live sometime this week just to kind of update you on how this is going, because this is a current project, and I will be uh, after I refine this later tonight, I will be slapping paint on. So I'm sure you'll want to see me slap paint around. And so I will pop on a live and let you know about that. And you can see where I'm at in the process with this piece. Um, it's always a hoot, pun not intended, but appreciated, to actually see the bird develop before your eyes. Um, there's a point where you're in the middle of painting and you're like, oh my God, what's happening here? But then you go get a cup of tea, you come back and you're like, whoa, he's got eyes now. How'd that happen? So, it's kind of fun to see it develop. So I'll let you in on that too. All right. Thank you for taking some time on your Sunday. I hope even just this session gave you some tips to take into your own practice. If you're new to drawing, I hope this kind of showed you how to look at a reference, because the way I approach this to put on to the paper is very similar, if not the same, as when I start to draw something too. So hopefully you can take that to your sketchbooks and it'll kind of help train your eye on how to look at something and transfer it to your paper. Okay, well, for those of you who are in my courses, welcome, and I'm so excited to see you. We start three of the courses, the two intro to drawing courses and the advanced course we start in September, pen and ink, and the intro to painting starts in October. So I look forward to seeing you um, in the courses. And yeah, in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out and ask me questions. I'm here to help you. I want everyone to draw. It's my mission to help you do that. And everybody can draw. Believe me, if I can draw, you can draw. So, and ask me why I think that. Send me a DM or ask me in notes because, yeah, if I can draw, you all can draw. So, yeah, have a good rest of your weekend and a beginning to your week. And don't forget, Wonderfilled Wednesday is on Wednesdays at 1:30 Eastern Time. If you're a Cricklewood member, you'll get a notification. If not, just look on notes because I post all the time. And the next episode of our drawing series on Tuesday drops at about 10 a.m. And we're going to talk more about values and using value shapes. Okay. Oh, good. Thanks, Maria. I'm glad this was helpful. Ethel, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you're going to be in the class. And yeah, I'll talk to you all very, very soon. All right. Take care.